Happy New Year. I'm Kay Williams, Chairman of the Properties Committee. We are here today to be the best standing committee, having the best meeting, and hopefully the shortest meeting we'll put you through for a while. So welcome to all of you. And excuse me because I have a cold and I know my voice is froggy. So if you are able, please join me in the pledge. Thank you. Thank you. We do have a quorum. That'll take us to 1.04 as I read to you the Governing Board Committee Meeting Procedure Statement. The Governing Board conducts all of its meetings, including committee meetings, in compliance with Arizona Open Meetings Law per ARS Section 33-1804 and in accordance with RCSCW bylaws, policies, and standing rules, parliamentary procedures as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order will also be followed, consistent with Bylaw 3.07, Procedures for Owner-Member Meetings, and Standing Rules numbers 2 and number 3. All questions and comments are directed to the committee chair. All comments are entertained at the discretion of the committee chair. Speakers shall state their name and member number and speak in a courteous manner. The committee chairperson may limit commentary time and the numbers of commentary speakers on each issue. The committee chairperson also may redirect commentary at the individual agenda items to the general guest comments agenda line item, except when the committee has discussed the agenda item and consensus or agreement is sought. All fire and room safety precautions and regulations are strictly obeyed at all meetings per the guidance of the Arizona Fire and Medical Authority. The committee chairperson reserves the right to adjourn any meeting if the safety of the committee, meeting attendees, or others is deemed at risk, or if there is too much disruption and to continue. After one verbal warning by the chairperson, the committee chairperson also reserves the right to ask any meeting attendees to leave any meeting should their behavior be deemed dangerous or unacceptable. Discipline action may follow. Thank you. As an aside, I am hopeful that this is the last time I'm going to have to read this. The governing board is taking a different look at how this is worded, and so you may soon see a different version of this at the meetings. Now you're in the know. Moving to 1.04, 2.01. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes from the November 7th meeting? If there are no changes, they will be accepted as filed. 3.01, update on facilities, capital projects. Mr. Wilhelm.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year, and we did not have a meeting in December, so our report reflects November and December's activities. Pretty simple, though. This time of the year, things start slowing down, and we only had capital projects at Palm Ridge. So the Activities Center building's flat roof restorations were completed on 11/15, followed by the Aquatics building flat roof restoration completed on 12/6/24. These restorations not only restore our roofs so that they're in great working order, but it also renews our 10-year warranty with our roofing contractors and consultant, and puts us in the future, in a good shape for the future. And that's it for capital projects for November and December.
The committee? Any questions or comments from the audience? Moving right along, Mr. Boston.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I am happy to announce that our drinking fountain at Echo Mesa 13 is finally done. Make a long story short, we have power at the drinking fountain. APS installed the meter on Thursday, December 26th. It was a roller coaster. We also are having some Beardsley aquatic shower issues. We are scheduled to replace both 100-gallon water heaters. We're scheduled for closure January 7th and 8th. And this, once they're installed, this should clear up the issues regarding water flow and temperature. We also had a Beardsley main water line break in the back as you enter where the garden club is, located underneath the paver walkway, because it never breaks in an easy location. It took till late Thursday to get all of our clearances from 811. So the guys tackled it first thing Friday morning, and we had the water back on by the time they left at 3. So I thought that was pretty awesome. And then another thing that came up since this report was turned in is we currently have a pool heater down at the Palm Ridge walking pool. It has already been assessed and needs to be replaced, and we're in the process of getting bids now. And of course, with all the holidays and closures, we're hopeful that we'll have that in the next few days now that the holidays are behind us. That is all.
Any questions from the committee for us? Any from the audience? Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. Well, this is always the exciting part of the year where we get to get into the official capital budget that's being proposed for FY25-26. I thank this committee for all their property tours, their great input, all the other committees that joined us on those tours and at their individual committee meetings gave input on their relevant items. The first document that you see here is what we call our color block, which represents new capital in tan, and the blue is repair and replacement for all recreation departments, and in the green is capital for the golf or landscape department. This sheet that you see here is not a representation of the entire budget. If you are interested in seeing the entire budget, I'm going to be talking about some budget totals here in a moment in the next portion of this presentation. But the BNF committee on January 21st, and I also believe at the governing board workshop earlier in the month. You can see the entire budget, and I'll give you some budget totals here in a few moments. This document here, though, shows all the relevant projects that we discussed during our tours that the budget and that the properties committee technically makes recommendation on. Each other committee that the governing board has, sports pavilion, charter clubs, they have a form of this list that is relevant to the things that they are championing for the year and making their recommendations. So if you want to go to the sports pavilion committee, you'll see all the sports pavilion projects being listed and described here in the next week or so. So to get this started, just give a quick review of this document here. For the properties committee, we had 3 relevant new construction projects being proposed. A little explanation on new. For anybody new in properties committee is these are dollars that are basically in our budget process and planning our placeholders. So every year we expect that there's probably going to be some new capital being proposed. The CFO, you know, uses the reserve study tool, and generally we have, you know, a placeholder projected for anywhere from 800,000 to $1 million or $1.5 million, depending on how we track our 5-year plan. So this year, you'll see that it's very small. In fact, it's only 190,000. And the items for properties were the Palm Ridge pool painting area, the discussions about clay club and glass enameling expansion, requesting the needs for architectural documents and fees only, year 1, and the mini golf shade cantilevers. I'll go in a little more detail on those in a moment. The next section of the list is the R&R items, which are items that are already saved in our reserve funds, and are the assets that we recognize here that are alive and active in the community and have met their useful life. We have the R.H. Johnson lawn bowling regrassing of 2 courts. We have the R.H. Johnson tennis courts windscreens, the R.H. Johnson pool sound system speaker replacement, some HVAC units at R.H. Johnson, the Kuntz cardio equipment, Kuntz softball outfield electronic scoreboard. I'll talk about that in a little more detail. Beardsley has some HVAC units. Beardsley also has the arts and crafts storage yard shed that is required. Beardsley's pool area and patio furniture, which was recognized by this committee as needing replacement. And then we have a circulation pump at the Palm Ridge pool and a spa heater. And then in the landscape or golf areas, I'll also be proposing that Desert Trails and Deer Valley need some new roof. The roofs have met their useful life, so we'll take those tiles down, refelt all the roofs, and put the tile back. And then finally, a Trail Ridge, a patio resurface. So that would conclude this committee's list of things that we talked about, looked at, and I'm going to go into detail in the next portion of the project for items over $50,000. Any questions?
Carl, the painting at Palm Ridge, the first one, I'm surprised that painting would be new. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on and clear that one up? Thank you.
It's a very good question. Painting is considered new when it's this scope of capital. Otherwise, facilities maintenance generally handles the painting in our community. This is deemed as a project that I'll discuss a little bit more detail, going to be handled by a general contractor due to the nuances of it needing some significant amount of scaffolding to paint that room, which we don't have in our inventory. So, and I know that Russ's team will be working diligently on some of our exteriors so diligently over the next year, including off-site walls around the community that his guys are pretty tied up. So,
Okay. A follow-up question on that. We just put a lot of money into renovating that aquatic area at Palm Ridge, and to me it's great. I'm a user of that facility. But can you, what are we painting that wasn't done? They put all that wainscoting up last year and redid all those walls. So what is going to be painted?
It would have been probably a little more convenient if we saw some of the issues that we recognize after spending so much time in that pool room doing the wainscoting and the flooring project. But Russ and I determined that what they attempted to touch up is more significant than a quick fix. So the whole interior room from wainscoting and up to the ceilings will be 100% repainted.
Okay, thank you. And it's a bit out of scope here, but thanks to Russ for the work in the locker room. The flooring, there was a lot of chips that we noted and deterioration of the floor in the men's locker room in the aquatic area, and that's all been fixed. So we didn't need a capital job, so thanks for that.
Any other comments from the committee? Well, it will surprise you, I have one. And it comes to the $30,000 Clay Club glass architectural work. As I'm sure you're aware, we are changing the way we have done things in the past, and a new working group has been formed with the blessings of the general manager that the Chartered Clubs Committee is going to put together, and has put together, a working group that will be 2 members from the 3 standing committees. Also, the 4 clubs that are involved, the president and 1 person from that group also has to be involved in that group, and of course, the general manager and yourself, and probably Casey. So my question is, knowing that that's going to take some time to come up with a solution, why would we even want to spend $30,000 on architectural drawings for something that may never exist?
Director Williams, that's a very valid question. It's there as an approved placeholder. So if we get into that work group discussion and things move forward within this budget cycle of discussing a budget, we are prepared by the end of this season of proposed budgeting to have some funds ready for next year. And remember that architectural documents and fees are only spent if needed. They're budgeted so that we know that we have the funds, but if July 1st rolls around and these funds are approved, that doesn't mean that they are going to get spent, but we have the opportunity to move forward in developing the project for a next level conversation.
Yeah, I understand that. I just want the rest of the world to understand that also, that just because it's on paper, it's not cast in concrete, and it's a wannabe and might be and might not be, as we've seen happen in the past. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that this decision has not been made, that they are getting new space and that they're designing it and all of that at this point, because we're a long ways from that by the 3 committees. But I do think it's a great improvement that we've decided to do this all as one group rather than running back and forth with having to make presentations to each of us separately and not knowing what the other one is saying. So kudos to Mr. Chatton on deciding to do things a little differently now that we have some new people on the board. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Very good question. Thank you, Director Williams. Okay, moving on to if there's no other questions, moving on to the presentation of proposed capital over $50,000. I'm gonna just go page by page. Russ, if you could move to the next color slide. This is a representation of the 4 color blocks that we talk about each year. So you have your tan new page, you have your items in the budget that are blue and green, which is R&R items for the recreation area and golf landscape departments. And then finally, a discussion on allowances. And one more time, if you would like to see this budget in its entirety, come to the governing board workshop, and then followed by the official budget and finance committee, getting their first review of all this with dollars attached. So this is our first time showing the budget with all of the costs included. Next slide, please. You'll see that the entire capital budget for FY25-26 being proposed. This is the list that was given to the general manager on December 1st. And this is our first month of reviews, starting with 50,000 and over. Next month or March, we move into over $100,000 capital, and we just keep getting all the questions weeded out and recommendations from the committees finalized so that we can get to a final budget package by around March and April. So new capital overall, we'll have $190,000 proposed for new capital. Recreational area repair and replacement is $2,068,512. In the golf world, between golf maintenance, landscaping, and golf ops, $2,714,776. Todd is going to talk about a relevant project with a landscaping with you today. And our allowances are money set aside for unknown, unexpected either repairs, projects, or ideas coming from the general manager or the governing board, or emergencies that just arise. Generally, we have a $420,000 budget, but the CFO or the general manager has been asked to bolster one particular line item, and that's in our IT development area, which is normally in the $30,000 range. So this year it will be $130,000 for unknown opportunities of improvement to this community for its IT and technological services. So it gives you a little recap of our full entire budget for FY25-26 capital, $5,493,288. Items over 50,000 in the new category relevant to Properties Committee are the Palm Ridge Pool Area Interior for 75,000. The full interior walls and ceiling repainting project, it will require a licensed and insured general contractor with qualified painting subcontractor. And the priority, the main reason for this not being in-house is these contractors have the availability of hiring vendors that provide large scaffolding. And the pools will be determined whether they need to be drained or not. And the logistics we'll figure out over the next few seasons, next few months before we kick this off in FY 25-26. Moving on, we have the Beardsley Mini Golf Shade Cantilevers for $50,000 proposed. I thank you all for the tours that we provided. You saw that the trees were removed. Most, if not all, trees were removed from the Beardsley Mini Golf area due to their condition, or they were flat out just dead. And we've had a lot of comments. I will say that a lot of folks have written in comment forms that they're very disappointed that the trees were removed. This is a fact, but they were in such poor condition and causing so much cost for staff to have to try to keep them clean. And then you think you've done your due diligence for the day, and a couple hours later, all that growth is just falling right back on the courts for the unexpected play or the club play that goes on out there. So it was determined to remove those trees. Properties saw our recommendation from staff to consider some shade cantilevers, and Todd is going to partner with the new capital projects manager, and he's going to replant some trees to offset the cost of these cantilevers. But you see the picture shown. It's a metal framed cantilever body with fabric shade. We generally get about 8 or 9 years out of the fabric. So 4 of them in unique locations to afford the best shade for people using that facility. That is it for new capital. We'll move on to R&R. Again, R&R items are the items that are recognized as live assets in our community and have met their useful life and need replacement. This money is already saved, and the list, it starts off with R.H. Johnson tennis courts, windscreens, courts 1 through 16. These windscreens are approximately 8 years old. And just like the court services wore out over the last 8 years, we resurfaced the courts. This next year, we plan on doing all the new windscreens if approved. So that's a lot of windscreen material. This year, we completed Sands pickleball at R.H. Johnson, and it went in successfully. Moving on to the Kuntz Fitness Center cardio replacement, $208,319. This is for the replacement of approximately 20 pieces of existing cardio equipment. The fees associated with upgrades to wireless streaming technology and improved machinery with greater technology inside of it, that was well received in our Palm Ridge program that we did. Please remember that fitness cardio equipment is replaced every 5 years at the rec centers on a rotational basis. So 4 years ago I did, or 3 years ago I did R.H. Johnson, 2 years ago was Beardsley, this particular season was Palm Ridge, and now Kuntz is up for its replacement. Then we have a pause year of no cardio in 26-27, and then we're back at R.H. Johnson in 27-28. It do not take 20 pieces and divide it by 208,000. That's not the cost. There'll be some efficiencies here, but based on how we track in our reserve study with inflation, This will take care of the room. We're also going to do some decor improvements, probably make the room a little bit more vibrant with some wall graphics, and just look forward to seeing how the room turns out and looks great. But the strength equipment is in great shape. It's tracking for its 20-year useful life, so that is not up for replacement yet. Moving on, you might be surprised to see the Kuntz softball outfield scoreboard on this budget. It needs to remain on the budget until all final purchases, installation, and approval are done out of the FY2024-25 budget. If you're not aware, the general manager and the governing board have approved the softball club's request to have this project funded by Liberty Buick. I have a $70,000 cost. That's my due diligence on doing estimates and quoting in case there's any extras that need to be taken care of during a sign replacement. But I believe that the commitment from Liberty Buick is for $50,000, and that sign should literally be taken down and replaced with new, and all things work out great. We'll be working on that over the next few weeks and months, and if this project is completed successfully and perfectly, it is a transaction out of our accounting system, so it does affect one budget or another. But if it is done successfully this season, it will be scratched from this FY25-26 budget, and we will have $70,000 less that we'll be asking for approval. And then finally, the last item over $50,000 is Todd Patty's area, and he's going to talk about that.
All right, good morning and Happy New Year. As Carl mentioned earlier, we have a project, we're proposing a project over at the Johnson Lawn Bowl to regrass two of the greens, number 1 and 2, with a newer variety of Bermuda grass, either Teff Eagle or Mini Verde, one of the ultra dwarfs. Right now we have 328 over there, which is really starting to show its age. And just to give you a little background, the greens are over 40 years old. Over the past several years, we've developed natural occurring mutations on those greens, and that also increases our maintenance that we have over there. We do not overseed those. Those are left dormant, and that's a member request so that they are consistent, they're smooth, and they're fast. We get most of our play during the months of October and May, through May. And then just some advantages of one of the ultra dwarfs. It's drought and disease resistant, requires less nitrogen inputs. It holds its color better into the colder months. Less thatch buildup, which is important for us. And then tends to be more forgiving when subjected to aggressive maintenance, like our aerifications that we do over there, our verticutting, and reduced mowing heights. And then the big one, improved speed and consistency, overall playability of the putting greens, or the lawn bowl greens, I should say. So with that, we're looking at a cost. I've had some bids on that already at $337,459, and then we would start this project, if it's approved, we would start that in April of 2026. So we do have 4 greens over there, so we would do 2 in 26. And we'll see how that works out for us, and then hopefully we could do the other 2. And that concludes my portion of the capital projects.
Folks, if you've got any questions, Todd and I are here to take those questions.
Todd, before you sit down, I'll spare you. Just a clarifying question on the 337,000. Is that include just 2 courses in this fiscal year we're talking about, or does that include the entire project?
No, that's just 2 of the greens.
So we can
That's
expect
a total renovation where we'd take about, we'd skin those down, we'd take out about 8 inches of that material, haul that out. In fact, we're looking at using that material for a lake project over at Deer Valley, also that's included in the capital budget. And then regrassing those, bringing in new USGA root zone mix. We'll take a look at the drainage at that time, see if we need to do any repairs or add new drainage, and then regrassing those with one of the newer varieties of Bermuda grass.
So if this is successful, we could look forward to another $350,000 the following year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the committee?
Todd? Before you leave,
Yes, sir.
what will be the life expectancy on this new grass?
I think it's going to be similar to the 328. I think we're going to look at maybe 35 to 40 years.
I had another question for Carl, too. The windscreens on the tennis courts, it looks to me, I was looking at them the other day there, and I think there's two spots that are, where the eyelets are getting wore out, from the wind. I think it's 16 in one other spot. We might not have to replace all of it necessarily.
Well, I'm gonna make this comment. We learned those lessons from stalling and trying to extend
yeah,
life
I
on the
agree. Yeah.
court surfaces.
Yeah,
So we are following our plans for R&R, and that way we just, if you just wait, you're gonna get impacted by inflation, so this is the best decision for the courts by staff.
okay.
So you have the opportunity of making your recommendation for sure as a committee, and so does the governing board, but our determination is to follow the useful life plan for this particular product. And my best comment is that we tried extending the court services, and we got caught in a year where it was elevated and quickly approved, so.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question about maybe one project that's not here. When we were doing our tours, I believe we had some conversations about shade canopies for the Johnson mini golf course as well. Was there any need there for shades as we're proposing for Beardsley?
If you could produce a document that you guys wrote that down as a request, I never received anything in that discussion.
I think it was mostly just discussion that occurs as we walk around. So I'm wondering if there is a need there that anybody perceived.
I'm gonna, go ahead, Russ.
So there are current canopies at every single hole, I believe, at Johnson. And that's been that way since Del Webb built it. So
Great.
they have them.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, that was not a recommendation in our written report that went forward, so I'm glad you clarified that. It is not our point of action today to make recommendations on this. This is the first we have seen it.
I have one question.
Oh, go ahead, Susan.
Carl, when, at the Coons, when you're going to be replacing the cardio equipment, is there going to be training on the new machines?
There is going to be training on the new machines. So, interestingly enough, that after replacing Palm Ridge with same for same cardio equipment, with the exception of its increased benefits of streaming availability, which we purchased those machines with that technology included, there was an overwhelming response of, you've changed everything. And in some cases, in the strength equipment, it changed significantly. And yes, it definitely deserved a higher level of training, which we weren't prepared for. Meaning, we quickly received comments, and we quickly put a team together and provided multiple weeks and multiple hours of training opportunity, and that all ended up working out really well. The overall response to change is still ongoing, and people just don't like change, but the equipment changes, it evolves. I mean, this is leading brand equipment. So yes, at Kuntz, there will be immediately following and pre-scheduled a training session so that people can break into the same exact machines they're going to be receiving that they have today, may have a different name brand on it, and it definitely will have some nice technological advancement, you know, with streaming and things like that, primarily the treadmills. But based on what we learned from this particular year, we are definitely going to have a great team all ready to go. CC Fitness, one of our contract vendors, was super helpful. The winning contractor that provided the equipment, they came and provided a whole day seminar along with my staff, Sabrina, Matt Wellman, and some others. So yes, definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The one thing I will hear loudest at Palm Ridge, Carl, is just remember, we're all not 6'4". Some of those machines, you should have a step ladder beside them for people that are under 5'5" to be able to reach the handles to safely use the machine. So that is something to take into consideration. You know, that we have a vast variety of age and capabilities and physical limitations. And
Yep.
so, you know, with the reason I say that is even with the spacing, there are certain areas that's very difficult if someone has a walker to get between the machines to get back on that far back wall because it's a very tight fit.
The goal is not to eliminate, but definitely to keep a safe environment. I believe that the new machinery or the new strength equipment created a safer environment, but just to your point, there are things that you just might not see, and I can't control the development of, usually if one manufacturer is changing and evolving in their equipment, so are the others. And I am bound by a couple factors. You know, one, doing our due diligence and looking at the equipment that is offered to us for bid, and, you know, reasonably the low bid. So I sometimes get what I get based on our policies. So do our best. I don't have to fully accept low bid, but trying to do our, you know, our best for the community. So a lot of things were learned that came up differently from, I mean, Beardsley went as smooth as can be, and I didn't do anything different other than the strength equipment didn't change. So after 20 years of people getting used to the strength equipment because it's got such a long useful life, now all of a sudden you have brand new strength equipment. It was significantly changed for a lot of folks. I do have a questionnaire that will be going out to before Kuntz so that we get more input in advance and try to make the best decisions for that purchase. So.
You'll be pleased to know you can teach old dogs new tricks. Even the biggest, loudest grumblers are getting used to the machine, but it's taken them a while.
It has taken a while.
Any other questions or comments, audience-wise, committee-wise, anything? Okay. It is not in our position today to make any decisions or recommendations on what we've just seen for the first time. As Carl's mentioned, we will be seeing it again in the future with more information. So this will give you time to digest the things you're seeing for the first time today. So when we have our meeting next month, we can take a look and see if there's any other suggestions we'd like to make. So that gets us to 5.01. Any committee comments? We'll start with Kathy. Okay.
No comment.
Of course I have to say something.
Please.
It's so nice to be back. And thank you all for your prayers, your support. It's been amazing, and we truly thank you. 2025 is going to be a great year, folks. Celebrate.
Any comments from this large audience or questions you would like to ask us? Well, in that case, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.